Homeless people that think they're from other planets. And, I mean, I get that every day walking down the street on my lunch break. Archenemy is brought to us by director Adam Egypt Mortimer and stars Joe Manganiello, Skyland Brooks, Zoli Griggs, and Glenn Howerton. We follow Hamster, played by Skyland Brooks, a young teen who's got his eye on striking it big in social media. Hamster walks around the city recording everything and everyone, just waiting to get that one video that's gonna send him to social media stardom. One day he comes across a local homeless man named Max, played by Joe Manganiello. But Max isn't your average homeless man. Well, depending on where you live, I guess. Max, whose full name is Max Fist, badass name by the way, claims to be from another dimension where he was a superhero. And apparently one day he got in a fight to where he punched somebody so hard he punched through time and space and ended up here. Unfortunately for Max, what gave him his superpowers in his dimension isn't present here. So here he's just a crazy drunk homeless guy on the street. Now Hamster doesn't really believe this story, but he goes along and films Max just because he thinks it's gonna get him to that social media stardom he's been looking for. Meanwhile, Hamster's sister, played by Zoli Griggs, is in leagues with a local gangster named the Manager, played by Paul Horton. And as Hamster follows Max around, his videos start to gain him popularity. However, Hamster and his sister's world are about to collide, and Max is going to be given an opportunity to show what he's really worth. Archenemy is a really interesting film. It's director Adam Egypt Mortimer's follow-up to his previous film, 2019's Daniel Isn't Real. Now, I reviewed that movie at the end of 2019, and I thought it was pretty good. It was a really interesting film, and I was looking forward to see what Mortimer could do once he had some experience under his belt and some money to do something with. Well, now he does, and what we got was Archenemy. I really like the concept of this film. It has some interesting characters and interesting situations, and it's a very visual film. While Max is clearly a nut job, he's a nut job who totally believes what he's saying. This guy thinks he's from another dimension. He thinks he was a superhero who could punch through time and space. Like, I mean, there's a part where he attacks a car, like a fucking moving car, like someone's in it trying to run over him, and he challenges it. He goes after it. Funny thing is, he wins the fight. Not in like a superhero way, it's just kind of by chance, but he does. He wins that fucking fight, and it's kind of glorious. Max is a really interesting character that gives us some really detailed background on this world he's from, much of which is given to us in this very stylized kind of moving comic book kind of way. I really like these parts of the movie. It was a very creative way to do something really big that they didn't necessarily have the money to do. And while yeah, it was a cheat, it did fit the overall tone of the film. As this thing goes on, you really want this guy to be a superhero. You don't believe that he is, but you totally believe that he does. And that's kind of where Max gets his power, if you will. He believes it. He 100% believes it, so he goes forward like he is a superhero. He takes on some pretty stout challenges in this movie that anybody else probably wouldn't have made it through, but seeing as how he believes that he's invincible, he believes that he will finish this deed. Somehow, he typically does. Mind over matter, all that shit. I was afraid when this movie started, it was going to be a slow burn, and it does kind of start out that way, but it ramps up fairly quick and has a very snappy pace. There is constantly something going on, and if something's not going on with these characters, then it's going to shift over to these to show you something going on with them. This movie never stands still. It is not stagnant in the slightest, but it doesn't feel rushed. It feels like it has a story, a very deliberate story that it wants to tell you, and it does that. It just does it in a very efficient way, and you never quite know where the story is going to go. One of the reasons being is because at times you don't totally know what is and is not real, especially when you're seeing things from the perspective of Max. Max sees things a little bit differently than everybody else, but not necessarily because he's a superhero, but because he's fucking crazy. Now, the other part of the story with Hamster's sister and the Manager and the whole crime organization thing, I was afraid was going to be a bit too much of a departure from what the movie was trying to be, but it wasn't. All that stuff fit perfectly. The characters over here are just as interesting as the ones that we started with, and when they come together, you know stuff about both sides, so it makes that conflict all the more interesting. Characters is something this movie did really good. Everybody is fleshed out just the right amount for you to be interested in them and have an investment in one way or another, so that when something happens, you actually care about what's going on. Now, this movie's nowhere near as bombastic as you think it's gonna be, especially after watching the trailer. Now, it has its parts for sure. It's got some really badass parts in it, but that's not what most of it is. A lot of this movie movie is learning about this world, or at least this world that this character thinks is real, but also learning about this world as well and the people that inhabit it. You really feel for Hamster and his sister Indigo. She does things in life that she's not proud of. She's involved with this criminal organization. She doesn't necessarily want to be, but she has to be. It's just her and Hamster, so she has to make enough money for them to survive. But she does want to make enough so she can get out of this shit. And while that is a bit of a tried and true trope, Zoli Griggs pulls it off effortlessly. I mean, she's part of the criminals. She is effectively one of the bad guys, but you don't really view her that way. They did a really good job of putting her in this light to where, yeah, I'm doing these bad things, but you still sympathize with this character. You understand why she's doing the things that she's doing. And you see that underneath, she is a good person. She's trying to do the right thing. She's just going about it the wrong way. And as for Skyland Brooks' Hamster, he does a great job of being a shining bright light within this shithole of a city that they live in. Hamster's life's not easy. He ain't got it good. But he does try and stay positive, and he's trying to make his way in the world as well so that he can get out of this. He's just going about it a better way than his sister. Maybe not as financially viable, but he is trying to do it the right way. Brooks plays Hamster with an infectious glee, and you can tell that this character really cares about people. While he is walking around recording Max and using that to make money, you never feel like he's trying to take advantage of Max. He's never exploiting Max. I mean, technically, yeah, I guess he is exploiting him, but it's not coming from a bad place. He wants to hear Max's story, and he wants other people to hear Max's story. And you get the feeling that he does care for Max, and he shows genuine empathy for this man out in the world. This type of character building mixed with these solid performances did a great job of building these characters up and making you care for them, which in turn made the later events in the film mean all that much more. Everybody here did a very solid job, but Joe Manganiello, that motherfucker was on point. Max Fist is the best part of this fucking movie. This guy gives no fucks, and he is crazy as hell, but you can't help but love him. You hear the insane things that he talks about, but you can see that he truly believes these things. And some of that is the writing of the character, but it is also Manganiello's performance. He is at times low-key, or at least low-key for his character. The guy's always kind of just wired, but at times he is more low-key, and then at other times he is batshit fucking insane like Nicolas Cage. And it's at these moments when I fell in love with the character of Max Fist. When Max is walking around doing his normal in the first half of the film, telling Hamster his story, it's really interesting, and the character's so eccentric that you just can't help but watch. But when he goes to fucking 11, this guy is out of his fucking mind, and it is just fucking amazing to watch. Just imagine a beefed up, coked out of his fucking mind Nicolas Cage going fucking ham on a group of motherfuckers in a room. That's one part, and it just escalates from there. This movie's even got its own hallway shot. You know those extended action scenes that are pretty brutal that started with like Old Boy and they were in Daredevil? Yeah, one of those is in here. And it does have its own take on the whole thing, but it is still pretty fucking cool. The second half of this movie leading up to the ending is fun as hell. Crazy or not, this motherfucker's going in and he's taking everybody the fuck out. However, all those good times do bring us to the end of the film, and this is where I think some people are going to have some problems. Me, myself, personally, I did enjoy the end of this film, but I can admit that it was a bit anticlimactic. Stuff happens, like big stuff happens, but the way that it goes down isn't quite as big and bombastic as I was hoping it would be, especially everything that preceded it. And really, parts of it seem like a setup for another movie that I don't think the filmmakers have any intention of ever making. And honestly, even though I did enjoy the movie, given the direction it went, I don't really know if I want to see this film that it could possibly be teasing. I mean, the movie's coming at you like bang, 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 and then in the end, you see the last big bang coming, but instead of a big bang, it's more of kind of a light push. Now, I liked it, and I was okay where they went with it, but I just wish the way that they got there right at the end was a little bit more. It was just a bit bigger. Now, granted, given the nature of this film and the way that this story's told and what it is, without spoiling anything, the way that the movie ends is a bit more faithful to the tone of the film up to that point. I will give it that. But that doesn't change the fact that I didn't feel totally fulfilled at the end of this movie. Did it ruin it? No. I still had a good time with this film. It just let me down a little bit right there at the end. Now, as I mentioned earlier, director Mortimer actually got some budget this time around. And while this isn't like a big Hollywood budgeted movie or anything, you can absolutely see the money that he got. He puts it to very effective use. The effects, practical and otherwise, that we get here all look really good. Like all of it. None of it looks off. There's no place where it seems like they went beyond their means. The practical gore and violence all looks really good. There's a healthy dose of it. It's not quite as much as you would like at times, but it never lets you down. There is enough of it here. The bit of CGI that we do get all looks really nice too. A lot of it is from Max's perspective, so it's kind of trippy and out there. And that really worked in its benefit, because even though it is CGI, and you can always pick CGI out, we know it's from the perspective of a fucking nutcase, so it's okay that it looks a little bit otherworldly. Overall, this is a really good looking movie that it looks like they put the budget to really good use here. And I was happy to see that Mortimer didn't get a bigger budget and kind of blow it all. No, he put it to very good use, and you can see it all on screen. Guys, I really enjoyed Archenemy's unorthodox story, even though it did let me down just a bit right there at the end. Even though I was let down a bit, it wasn't a terrible ending, and it didn't negate everything that came before it. This is once again a very interesting film from Mortimer with some really great performances and very solid effects. The movie takes a really tried and true story and puts a great spin on it, and it never loses focus of one of the core components to any great movie, the character. It's got some great characters, a really interesting story, and overall it's just a really good time. And it's also absolutely worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
Now, while I was let down just a bit by the way that the ending played out, it was still a really fun movie. So if you're looking for a fresh take on a superhero or vigilante story, then check out Archenemy one night, and I think you'll have a great time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Archenemy. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Milwaukee.
You look insane.
If you watch the trailer of this movie, you'll see that it's from the producers of Mandy and Color Out of Space, which that right there should be enough for anyone to want to watch this movie. And I really wouldn't be surprised if the character of Max Fist was originally written for Nicolas Cage. This is a very Nicolas Cage movie. I could 100% see Nicolas Cage playing this role. Not that Manganiello didn't do a good job. He did. He was great in this role. But he was totally channeling Nicolas Cage. Like Mandy Nicolas Cage. This motherfucker's crazy. Like snorting fucking meth to go crazy on some motherfuckers kind of crazy. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. Woo!